Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and here we are for another one of our videos, this time doing something a little bit different, and that is instead of gameplay, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on Total Warhammer 3. We're going to do a few short videos looking at the possible lords and possible heroes that we could see added to the factions, obviously with the recent patch of 3.1 with Harry the Hammer being added, with the roadmap that shows additional legendary lords and legendary heroes being added to the game. I thought it would be interesting to take a look at the factions and see what else could come. Now myself, I've been playing Warhammer Fantasy since 1992. I've seen many characters come and go, but what I'm doing here is just trying to try and stick to the ones that are the most well known, and I'm going to leverage off the 8th edition books as well where possible, given that they were the last ones in the series. And actually, if we look at a lot of the legendary lords that are currently in the game, they do reasonably well match up with the 8th edition book where they had one, or the book that the last book they had. So, you know, Chaos Dwarfs, for example, didn't get a book after a 5th edition. So we're just going to have a quick look at those, and I'm going to highlight what we currently have, and then look at what we possibly could have, and then the ones that I personally would have in the game. Now, there are tons of characters out there for each of these factions, through books, through lore. I'm not going to delve into nearly even close to all of them. Say just keeping a few out there, a few of the most well-known ones, and you know, everybody's got their own personal choice. I'm sure there's many of you out there, and if you do, put them in the comments below, the ones that you might like to see in the factions as well. So, without further ado, we're going to start off. We're going to go in alphabetical order. There's no favouritism here. And we're starting with the Beastmen. Now, the Beastmen is one of my least favourite factions, just in Warhammer in general. And, of course, that translates into the game. I just never have been into the Beastmen. I've never owned a Beastman army on the tabletop. And I've only ever played through a Beastman campaign once. So, I'm certainly as far from a Beastman expert as it goes. But they're the first on the list, and that's what we're going to start with. So, current lords in the game, we've got Khazrak the One-Eye, Malagor the Dark Omen, Morga the Shadowgrave, and Taurox the Brass Bull. Now, all of those were in the 8th edition army book. 3 of them were actually lords, but Morga the Shadowgrave was actually an 8th edition hero, but has been made a lord. So just as we go through the other factions, just bear in mind that anything that we put as a hero could become a lord, and so on. It's not set in stone. So, when we look at what other lords out there, yes, there are other Beastman lords in the lore, but for me, there's only one real clear choice here, and that's Gorthor. He was also a lord in the 8th edition. Now, when we consider who Gorthor is, he was pretty much one of the greatest beastmen to ever lived. He's credited with assembling the largest ever army of beastmen. His particular story focuses on ravaging the Empire. He pretty much destroyed 2 total provinces. He killed millions of men, and almost killed the Empire beyond recovery. I mean, very, very close. He didn't have any magic ability, though he did get visions of the future. He did have a kind of dark corona of energy around him when he was engaged in battle, which sort of gave him some protection, and he was kind of hailed as a emissary of the dark god. So I think with that, there's some interesting things that could be done. You know, we do have Khazrak already ravaging the Empire, but Gorthor would definitely fit with some sort of, you know, whether it's a Norsca / Chaos Waste and down into the Empire, or starting in the Empire on the edge of it. You know, that's definitely would be where Gorthor could go. And I think with those visions of the future and, you know, certainly that sort of dark corona of energy around him, that could, again, give some interesting elements to differ him to the other lords. In terms of current heroes in the game, we don't have any. But in terms of possible heroes, I mean, there's kind of 4 possible heroes. These were all in the 8th edition book as heroes. You've got Moonclaw, son of Morsleep. You've got Slugtongue. You've got Ungrel Forehorn, and you've got Goros Warhoof. Goros Warhoof is probably the most well known out of those four. However, and you consider, I mean, Goros Warhoof, you know, he's an ancient Centaur, basically. So, I mean, it would be an interesting hero. It's a Centaur, so it would be interesting. However, for me, I would actually quite like to see Moonclaw. Moonclaw, son of Morsleep. What's special about him? Well, you know, he was an exceptionally hideous and insane beastman that was born from an egg of warpstone. So you could actually make him look quite different in the game. He would stand out as a legendary hero. And I think you could give him some interesting stuff around that whole warpstone piece, and the fact he's insane, I think could make him quite interesting. Slugtongue would also be interesting because he's essentially a sorcerer as a hero level. But for me, I quite like the idea of Moonclaw, son of Morsleep, as that 8th edition hero. So overall, I mean, I think the Beastmen overall look in a pretty decent place where they are in the game right now. Could they have another Lord, and could they have a legendary hero? Should they? I actually think they should. I definitely think Gorthor should be in the game, and I definitely think if race is going to get legendary heroes, I think every race should have a legendary hero. And I think there's definitely legendary heroes out there for every race, so it'd be great to see those. But in terms of the Beastmen right now, I think, you know, they're in a great place. I think they're a pretty decent faction, if not very strong faction. And, you know, if I have to pick one that's my favourite, it's Taurox the Brass Bull. But I definitely think a Gorthor campaign into the Empire with a legendary hero of Moonclaw in there would be a real interesting addition to the faction. And, you know, and that's my personal opinion on the Beastmen faction, and that's who I think you know, the possibilities are. As I said, there are plenty of characters out there trying to stick to 8th edition where possible, but you know, I think those are the ones. I think it's interesting that we got Morgur in as a Lord when he was actually a hero in the book. So, but there we go. That's my quick, short view on the Beastmen. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. But don't give it a thumbs down if you disagree with me. But if you do disagree with the choices I've put in, or there are other characters you think that should be in there on the possible list, then put it down in the comments down below, and we can have a good discussion on who you think should be in and why. And if you want to see more content, please hit the subscribe button. It is free for you to do, but it means a lot for me. So thank you for that in advance. And if you do subscribe, every time there's new content, you'll get to see and get a notification for it. You've been watching The Ghost Owl, and I'll see you very soon.